dealing with UC, and I know the people that suffer from Crohn's and ulcerative colitis can probably agree with me. You tend to see the world in shades of gray because you're always suffering it one way or another. And now I don't. Like it's a colorful, beautiful world out there, and I'm loving it. I'm able to go on hikes, and I'm able to, exercise and do things that I couldn't before, and I love it.
Hi all, my name is Eric Caldwell. I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2010 and I fought awful symptoms for over 10 years. I had bloody stools, I was emaciated, lost weight, I was in pain, I hated myself, and I prayed for death. Things changed rapidly. From the first week, I noticed things changing. The very first session, they taught me to look inside myself and to see things that I never knew were there. By the third session, all of my symptoms were gone. Everything had changed, and my perception of who I was and what was around me changed for the better. Life is beautiful.
That's one thing, like, this whole process has taught me so many tools and so many valuable things that I now have in my life that I wouldn't have had I not had this disease. You get the homework, you got to put the work in. Like that's the best advice, because I didn't realize until I was finished with the sessions and you had pointed out all the effort I had put in, and how, that's what really helped me. That's what really fixed me. There was no, just talking to you guys wasn't going to heal me. And really just my attitude. Like, I can't stress it enough. It's an entire change, just the way I see things and perceive things. And when trouble comes up, I have things in my toolbox now, my emotional and mental toolbox, where I can handle them. I don't add stress and compile stress.
Here we go. Hi, Eric. How
Hello.
you doing?
I'm doing well, sir. How are you?
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for being here. So let's start. Let's just go to the point. Let's ask you about your story a little bit. The story you want to share today.
Okay, so I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 2010, and it started with mild to, moderate flares periodically up until 2020. I had a really severe flare, like the worst I've ever experienced. I mean, the works. I had iron deficiency anemia. I suffered a mild heart attack. I had sepsis. It was really bad. And then ever since then, I had severe flares periodically, a lot of hospitalizations. And 2022, when I first met you and signed up for the sessions, I had just come out of the hospital, and I
And
started working with you and Natale, and things have been great ever since.
awesome, awesome. Okay, let's go a little bit more into detail. What solutions did you try before?
Well, obviously, the first was medications prescribed by my doctor, the sulfasalazine, biologics. Steroids were the worst, and the steroids, out of all the medications, worked, I guess, the best, you could say. While I was on them, I didn't have flares, but the moment I was done with my, um, what do you call it, basically the regimen, my taper, I'd go back into a flare. Like, I'm talking like days, not weeks. Days after my last pill, I would start bleeding again, and then it'd progressively get worse, and then I'd end up in the hospital. And then I started, a lot of the clean eating and stuff like that, Weston A. Price Foundation principles, and those helped with a lot of my symptoms. But I found that while I was eating clean, I was still experiencing flares periodically, and pretty severe ones. And so the next step I took is I noticed on a lot of Facebook groups that deal with UC, mentioned like carnivore diet. So I started to do this one called the Lion Diet, and it has worked for other people. It didn't work for me. After I finished 6 weeks of it, I told myself I would try 6 weeks. The day after my last day of the 6th week, I was in the hospital again with another terrible flare. So none of those things really healed me. Some of them could manage the symptoms, others could, I mean, they really didn't do a whole lot. So there was something missing.
So there were some things that worked a little bit, some other things that didn't work at all.
Yes.
What did you gain from this experience so far, and from the last
Working
part?
working with you. Oh
Yeah,
man.
working
Um
with me, and then also doing the whole research you've been doing.
all of that research, all of those things I tried, it was frustrating because I was doing the right things. I was following guidance from others saying this will work, this will help. And it didn't get me to that point where I wanted to be. And when I started working with you and Natale, that's when things totally changed. And when you first did the pre-screening interview with me, I was very skeptical and I was nervous and stressed. I had a lot of anxiety and I really didn't think it was going to work. And so at the end of it, because I think we only worked 4 sessions, we didn't do the full five. By the end of the fourth session, I had already been almost a full month having, solid bowel movements and no blood. So it was, when it changed, it happened pretty quick.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, so in your understanding, how did the process which led you to healing worked? What is it that you
Oh,
experience? What is that you would
oh
like to share?
man. I think the process that led to my healing was that, I had to realize from working with you and Natali that even though I was doing everything right physically, there was something that I had that I was keeping that was keeping me from getting healthy, and it was an emotional barrier or a trigger or trauma, something I suffered. And once, which happened really fast, by the way. I think we pinpointed it in the very
First
first
session,
session.
yes.
We pinpointed that issue, and then we started working through it. And from that point on, like there were all sorts of changes. It was pretty
Awesome,
amazing.
awesome, good job. So let's see. We have some questions here. Like, what has changed in your life now? Now that you
Oh,
have overcome
um,
this.
well, I mean, it's a positive change, and everything has changed. My attitude has changed. My outlook has changed. The way I see things has changed, like for the better. I Dealing with UC, and I know the people that suffer from Crohn's and ulcerative colitis can probably agree with me. You tend to see the world in shades of gray because you're always suffering it one way or another, and now I don't. Like it's a colorful, beautiful world out there, and I'm loving it. I'm able to go on hikes, and I'm able to, exercise and do things that I couldn't before, and I love it.
Awesome. That's really good. So, what would you recommend? What would you feel you would recommend to people who are listening to us now?
Oh, I do think that, if you're struggling and suffering, um, eating healthy is going to help. It's not going to solve the entire problem. But request to sign up for sessions, definitely. And when you get in and you start the sessions, be open and honest. I was, very kind of standoffish and nervous that first session and didn't want to open up, a little introverted. But I told myself I was going to. And so when you and Natalie started working with me and asking me questions, I really started being honest with myself and with you guys and just spilling my emotions. And then, once you get that and you get the homework, you got to put the work in. Like that's the best advice, because I didn't realize until I was finished with the sessions and you had pointed out all the effort I had put in, and how, that's what really helped me. That's what really fixed me. There was no, just talking to you guys wasn't going to heal me. I had to put in effort and do the homework and the exercises, which I still do to this day.
So it's the
So
aspect of we can call it responsibility, right? Is that
yes,
something that you find it was important?
yes, yes, you've got to take ownership for it and do it yourself. You got to put work in.
Awesome. Okay. There is some other questions we got from some of the listeners. One is, how do you know you're better now?
Um, you know, I think it's because I don't really think much of it now. I don't focus on it. Even when I would be in remission for small periods of time or be on the prednisone, I always dreaded. I always looked forward to that next flare. And now I don't even think about it. It doesn't cross my mind, and I think that's an indication of how much better I am. And my mental and emotional state now compared to where it was then is also a big indicator of how I've come along, and I know I'm better.
And that's a very good point because as we talk about it during the sessions, it's there's all this chemistry of love and joy and gratitude versus the chemistry of fear and worry and frustration, like that the chemistry has actually an impact on our body. So let's see. Another question is, how did your life change now as you're feeling better, as you've been feeling better since you've been doing all this work?
just just how I perceive the world now in a positive light. I mean, I express gratitude multiple times a day, every day. I love my wife and kids more. I enjoy being around people. I used to hate that, with
Awesome.
UC, because you feel like you're different than everybody else. And so I have great relationships with my coworkers now. And so it's just how I'm perceiving things now and just loving life, not waiting
That's
to die.
that's awesome. I really like that. Also, another thing that just came to my mind is I know there is groups of a lot of groups on Facebook, for example, or other social media, in which they try to find support. But the way I experience them is that they're just kind of getting together to share the trouble, and they are not looking really funny for a solution. So in Italian, we say like that when you share a trouble, it becomes alpha joy, which is in a way is true, but it's like we still need to look for the solution, right?
Right.
So, what is the biggest change you had to do to start the healing process?
Well, first, I had to forget everything I thought I knew about my diagnosis and throw it out the window and be open minded. And I had to trust the process. I really had to put all my chips in, so to speak, with you and Natale. And then I had to put the work in, I had to do the effort. So, you know,
Awesome. I really like that. Sometimes this question will be repetitive, but in what ways is your life transformed now? You said you have more joy, more
yeah,
gratitude, you like hanging out people, you love your life, you love your wife, you love
yeah.
your daughter.
Every single aspect of my
So it's
life
been
has
a
changed
very,
for the better.
very big change, I think.
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay. Again, there is more question about change and differences after you overcame the symptoms. I guess I don't know if you want to go more into detail, like maybe
You
you're able to
I
say,
I
would
guess
you
I
able
can't.
to go hunting or do what you want to go for hikes or things like that?
Yeah, just being able to be, physically active again, and play with, my kids, and really just my attitude. Like, I can't stress it enough. It's an entire change, just the way I see things and perceive things. And when trouble comes up, I have things in my toolbox now, my emotional and mental toolbox, where I can handle them. I don't add stress and compile stress.
Awesome, awesome. And also, that's very good, a very good point, right? Because in the end, as we will see later on this interview, this is like it's been a changing and also a growing experience, right, for
Yes.
you. What was the turning point during the process, like when things started to change? Is there just one point, or it was more of a process?
Well, it was a process. I think, like I said earlier, I was in the hospital right before we started the sessions, and then after the first session, I experienced a flare and was in the hospital again for observation. But They couldn't find anything wrong with me other than I was passing blood and was in immense pain. Usually when I go in, and the people who suffer from UC and Crohn's and have those flares can attest to this, something's wrong. You either have low potassium or your iron's low. And every time I was ever in the hospital, that was the case. But this time, everything was elevated. It was where it needed to be. It was in the normal range. And the doctors didn't quite understand why I was going through a flare when, I mean, everything on paper looked like I was fine. I was just bleeding. And so I think that was the aha moment for me, that there was something to this. So as soon as I got out of the hospital and we started the second session, I think that's when I really started smiling during the sessions, because then I was excited. Then I was like, okay, something's happening with me. It's got to be positive because this is the best result I've ever got coming out of the hospital. And so, yeah, I think that was the turning point, realizing that something different was going on.
Beautiful. That's great. There is some questions here that probably we already talked about, but let's see. You already said that yeah, you had maybe some worry, or is there any specific doubt or concern that you were having before starting the process?
Well, because I had heard, the process, the hypnosis and things like that, and they kind of had a negative connotation to them, and so I had a lot of doubt, and I really didn't think it would work, but I had tried so many things already that initially I was just like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. I'm going to give this a try, and if it works, then I can say it didn't, and I was right to begin with. And so, that's really how it started.
And that's what I like about your attitude, because it's like you really like jump into it, because one of the things that as humans we do, we're like hesitant, and we're like, we go in and then we go out, and then we never know if it's going to work or not if we do that. And instead, if you want to try something, you really need to put the best effort into it, right, as you did. Otherwise, when people are like hesitant, there's an issue with making decision, I guess. I guess as
Right.
humans, right? So great
Yes.
point in underline that it was about making the decision to give it your best, right? um, you were saying already that it took you there's another question that says how long did it take for you to see the results, and you said it was about a couple of sessions or something like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was the third session was when I was able to tell you guys that I had gone a week with formed stools and no blood. And then from that point on, I've experienced zero symptoms.
Awesome. Okay, we know more of the process. Of course, we cannot talk about everything here, so you know what I'm talking about. But there is some question for people that are just listening to us, that they're asking, like, how do you know that you won't come back, and what has changed inside of you?
Um, because I have tools now, things I didn't have in the past. I never managed stress and adverse situations very well, and now I really excel in them. I almost thrive when something comes up, and so I don't worry about it. I really don't anymore. I just don't care. I mean, during the sessions, you used the analogy of the river and how we're all on the river. It all comes to an end. Everybody knows it does. And so you can fight it and fight it and fight all of these things, or you can just go with the flow. And the moment I started going with the flow, things changed. So I really don't think much about it. I don't ponder it anymore. I try to look at positive aspects and look forward, not back, because I've put it behind me at this point.
That is so beautiful. It's really, really nice to see this, wanting to go, being able to go with the flow, right? And
Right.
just enjoy life, and also looking at, as you will see, there's another question in which you're probably going to be able to talk about this, how in a way this obstacle was like almost like a gift, right, as
Yeah.
looking respect. So let's move forward. um, did hypnosis or the process help you find the root cause of the ulcerative colitis?
Yes, and I want to also stress this. It was not what I thought it was. It was because I went in with a perception that After the interview, the first session, I expected it to be one thing, and it wasn't. And it was amazing how quickly you and Natalie were able to talk me through it and help me pinpoint it, because that's really what you did, is you just gave me the tools and walked me through the process, and I'm the one that was able to come to that realization. That's what was so awesome about it.
Beautiful. And so is all this aspect of engaging in the homework and
Yes.
engaging in getting to this realization that sometimes they take even some time probably to come up, right?
Right. And the homework and the all of the information in that, it really didn't feel like homework. I know it gets, the word homework gets a bad connotation, but it
Yeah.
really wasn't. I didn't realize how much effort I had put in until you had pointed it out at the end of the sessions. I just, it became part of my life and my routine, and I enjoyed it and looked forward to it.
In the end, it's just kind of like substituting one habit that used to get us create problems with another habit that is instead is creating tools to find
Exactly.
resources, right?
Yes.
There is another couple of questions here. Let's see how we are one time. He says, how long did it take you to heal? I think we talked about it. It was like a few weeks, I guess, right? How long did it
How
take you to
long?
see yourself healed?
Yeah, it was a few weeks until I was completely symptom free. Like I said, that because the sessions were every 2 weeks, and I was in the hospital before and after the first session, and so yeah, about 3 weeks is when the symptoms kind of stopped, and everything started to come back in place. But I don't like to say I'm healed. I like to say that I'm always healing, because I can always do better now. And that's one
Yes.
thing that this process taught me, was like, hey, I'm going to keep going. I'm going to take what I have, what God gave me, and I'm going to make it better every day. And so I don't ever want to stop that.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like that. One of the last questions, if you could meet yourself before you started to have the symptoms, so that's probably some years ago, what would you say if you could to yourself to get you over the problem before it even started?
Oh man. I don't think I'd want to. That's one thing, like, this whole process has taught me so many tools and so many valuable things that I now have in my life that I wouldn't have had I not had this disease. You know, I mean, even before I was diagnosed with these symptoms and this illness, I uh I didn't live the life that I live now. Does that make sense?
It totally
And
makes sense.
so this whole process really has opened my eyes, and now that I'm on the other side of it, I feel great. I wouldn't want to go back and change it. No. I
Beautiful.
would just
See,
let it run its course.
is the idea of that the adversity or the problem is always having a gift, and the gift is the solution that we need to find to overcome the problem, right? So
Right.
become more stronger and wiser. And the model that we use, me and Natalia, is that there is no true healing, if we want to talk about healing, without growth, because the
Yes.
symptoms are
Yeah.
just pointing us to which areas in our life we need to grow. We need to change habits or create a conscious growth and a conscious evolution in ourselves. One of the, we can say this, let's see how we are on time. There is one question here. We can say one of the last ones says, what's the one question that nobody has asked you that they should be asking you for how you cured your ulcerative colitis?
Oh man. That's really a tough one. Um, I guess it would be, and I feel like we kind of answered it in the last one, but how would your life be different if you never had this disease? I think would be a question that nobody asks. They ask themselves, but you never see it, you never hear it. And I think, being on the other side of it now, and going through the growth that I've gone through, my life would be worse if I never had this illness, these symptoms, this diagnosis. Um, so it's changed me for the better.
Beautiful. Yes, yes. It's again this idea of we are just needing to grow and understand how our body or our mind are connected in the end, right? Because
Right.
that's the point. The molecules of emotions and how our habits change our body. Is there anything else you would like to share, or anything that we think we forgot? You think we forgot? Feel
Um, I would just anybody out there who's struggling, especially going this route, if you're beginning a journey of natural healing, um, patience is the biggest one. It may not happen overnight. We're all different, so it may not happen like it happened for me, but it will happen. You need to be patient. You need to be dedicated to the process. Don't cheat. Don't cut corners. You know, don't go for a couple of days, not see results, and then give up. Just stay the course. Stay motivated. Get on these groups and look for people who are willing to reach out to you and help motivate you. You can motivate them. That in turn helps with this process. That was a big thing for me too, is when I started noticing changes, I got to reach out to others that were involved in the process that I went through with you and Natale. And we fed off of each other, and it became almost a positive echo chamber. Like there was no more negativity. There wasn't this mess of, oh, I'm sick, I'm hurting. It was, hey, I had a small win today. No matter how small it is, celebrate it.
celebrate. Yes, yes, that's beautiful. Beautiful. I like the aspect of being patient, and we also, I like to call it constance too. Be having the patience, being patient, and being constant, and again taking responsibility, because as many times people ask or they reach out for help, but they don't understand that it's not that there is a magic pill, or there is a magic that we can feel like magic sometime,
Yeah.
but because that's what hypnosis could feel like, but actually it's all about taking responsibility.
Right. It's just
And
like Natale said, on the last session, he said, when you put the work in, that's when a miracle happens, and it does. So, so
that's
yeah.
awesome. Okay, I think we are about 20-25 minutes, so probably it's enough, unless we get to stretch too much people's attention. So thank you so much. I'm looking forward to see you again,
Yes, you
and
too. Thank you so
I will
much.
I will share this with whoever is interested,
Yes.
and we'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Tell Natalia I said hi as well.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect. Ciao.